Hello, how are you? My name is Terry O'Hanlon. I'm one of the careers consultants working within careers, employability and skills at Queen's University Belfast. Over the next few minutes, my aim is going to be to talk about some of the differences and potentially some of the similarities between a competency-based interview and a strength-based interview. I hope at the end of this short presentation, you'll have a better understanding of the two interview styles. So what is the difference between the two styles of interviews? Generally, strength-based interviews and competency-based interviews on the surface can seem to be the same, and indeed they are very similar. However, that's not quite true. Yes, they are similar, but there are some very subtle differences to the whole experience. A good interview panel or HR team will be very aware of this, and with the correct usage of questions, be able to extract or obtain the information from you to support your application and determine if you're the right person for the job. So let's ask yourself one very important question. What exactly is a competency? Well, a competency is a thing that you can do or have done and can show evidence of achieving, such as when you've worked as part of a team or designed a program. You'll be able to talk through your examples, potentially using the S.TA.R technique, but we will talk about this more at a later stage. In comparison, a strength-based interview assesses what you enjoy doing, so in theory you'll be good at this. While you cannot change the fundamentals of what you enjoy, for a recruiter, thinking about how your preferences fit with the organisation and the job requirements is still important. Indeed, strength-based interviews are getting more and more popular and are taking preference over competency-based interviews. So, what is a strength-based interview? Well, strength-based interviewing has its foundations in modern positive psychology. The theory is that by identifying your strengths and matching them to the role, you will be happier in your work and will be able to perform better, pick up tasks while learning quicker, and stay with the company for longer periods of time. By you staying longer with the company, this in turn will save the company money and resources by not requiring an additional recruitment process over a set time frame. Progressive companies often use this recruitment method to fill long-term or permanent posts, and you may require to develop you as the role you're undertaking develops in its own right. As already indicated, a strength-based interview focuses on what you enjoy doing rather than what you can do or have done. In some ways, just like a competency-based interview. But don't be fooled. While you're talking about what you like and dislike in relation to tasks or previous employment, the employer or interviewer isn't just learning about what you're good at, but also what you're not so good at. Unlike their competency counterparts, strength interviews are more personal and allow recruiters to gain a genuine insight into the personalities of candidates and to see whether they would be a good fit for their company. They also allow you as the interviewee to be selected based on your natural abilities and possibly not on the opportunities that you may or may not have had for one reason or another. So when a candidate is using their strengths, they often do certain things. So when you talk about your strengths during an interview, you should demonstrate a sense of urgency and show an interest backed up by a certain amount of excitement, because after all, you're talking about an area of work that you enjoy and that you see it as a potential strength. However, take note, be careful. Individuals often slip into talking at length about something they like doing, as they may enjoy the task in question and may lose an awareness of time on offer during the interview process. It would be hoped that because you have a passion for strength-based situation in question, that you'll show that you can learn quickly in the subject and can identify new approaches to the situation that the panel or the interviewer is ultimately trying to investigate. So let's now look at some of the types of questions in a strength-based interview. So here we can see some typical questions. Have a quick look and see what you think. These questions are what an interview panel may ask, especially if they are using strength-based interview styles. As you can see, they're not asking you to give an example or talk about when you engage in a very, very specific task. They're focusing on you, what you're good at and what you prefer doing, and hopefully how you do it. It'd be good practice to always keep note of these questions and be prepared at any stage within the recruitment process to immediately engage in answering any of these very basic questions. After all, they're all about you and you're the expert in yourself. This may be a bit of a cliche, but it is so very, very true. So we've looked at strength-based interview and what a strength is. So now let's look at competency and competency-based interview. So let's firstly look at something like, what is a competency? So a competency is something you do in order to deliver your role successfully. The interviewer may ask questions looking for you to give an example of a time when you demonstrate a particular skill or competence. Therefore, they may in turn ask you questions similar to, please give me an example of a time when you worked in a team situation to solve a complex problem. By giving them a good example of a specific situation and hitting certain competencies, the idea is that your specific evidence of past performance will be a good indicator of what will hopefully be your future performance. Some larger organisations publicise their competency framework, such as the civil service or EY, and this will demonstrate the types of behaviours they're looking for within their organisation, and this should be reflected in your answer at all times. So let's look at what a competency-based interview actually is. Okay, so a competency-based interview, also known as a structured behavioural or situational interview, are designed to test one or more skills or competencies. The interviewer has a list of questions, each focus on a specific skill, and your answers will be compared against a predetermined criteria and then marked accordingly. Competency interviews often work on the principle that experience or behaviour is the best indicator of your future performance. They can be used by employers across all sectors, but are very much favoured by large graduate recruiters who may use them as part of their specific assessment centres. Larger organisations such as the civil service or any other public-facing bodies such as health trusts really do favour this format. They differ from a more normal or unstructured interview, which tend to be more informal. In an unstructured interview, a recruiter often asks a set of random, open-ended questions relevant to the job, such as what can you do for the company and why did you apply for the job, to get an overall impression of who you are. A competency-based interview, however, is more systematic, and each question targets a skill needed for that particular job that you have applied for. Key competencies regularly sought after by employers include adaptability, commercial awareness, communication, conflict resolution, teamwork, leadership, problem solving, and often you'll hear about organisational skills. Many competencies can be reviewed, so it's important that you carry out your research on the company and review any feedback or performance criteria or skill sets that have been indicated within the recruitment pack that has hopefully been provided to you by the employer. So, as I said earlier, we'll look at the S.TA.R technique in a bit more detail. It is often the best approach to use when trying to answer a competency-based interview question, such as give me an example when. By setting out a methodical plan when trying to show your examples with regard to a competency-based question, the S.TA.R technique often works well and can cover a number of different competencies. So let's break down that framework. S.TA.R is an acronym that stands for situation. This is where you set the scene and give the necessary details for your example. Task, where you describe your responsibility was and what you did in that situation. Action, where you explain exactly what actions you took to address the situation, and result, where you share your outcomes, but always try to remember to end on a positive note, such as where you save time, money, or resources. By using these 4 components to shape your example, it is so much easier to share a focused and precise answer, providing the interviewer with an easy to understand yet compelling narrative of what you've done. In other words, the interviewer can easily follow along with your example, but also determine based on your answer how well you may fit in with a job description or requirement using your understanding of the requested competencies. So we've just looked quickly over the 2 types of interview styles. They may seem very similar, however, they are very different in their own right. It is important as a candidate that you can distinguish between the 2 types and respond in the appropriate manner. Remember, unlike competency-based interviews, strength-based interviews are difficult to prepare for. They are more about you and what you're good at, so you need to be prepared to talk about yourself. Competency-based interviews can, to a certain extent, be researched, and by looking at the employer's organisational competencies, you can answer them using a set formats such as S.TA.R. Remember, though there's no hard and fast rule in relation to an interview, always try to remember to keep calm. Answer to the best of your abilities, and don't forget you can and should ultimately request feedback, especially if the panel feels that you're not what they're looking for at that time. To assist you with strength-based interviews and competency-based interviews, look out for workshops by EI on our own Queen's University My Future, or even on the QUB Careers and Employability website. This should give you an even more in-depth insight into different types of interviewing techniques. So, one of the best ways to get more information and more experience about interview skills or techniques is to talk to one of the careers consultants within the University Careers and Employability Service at Queen's University Belfast. Most days the consultants are available for a 30-minute appointment and can be booked through My Future. Further information can of course be found on the Careers and Employability portal, or you can go straight to qub.ac.uk/myfuture. So hopefully this short talk will help you navigate through a few of the various interview styles, and don't forget the Career Service of Queen's is here for you and is always there to assist in any way that we can. Again, I hope the last few minutes has been beneficial, so on that note I'd like to thank you for giving me your time and good luck in your future endeavours, and especially with your interviews. Thank you, goodbye.